Good morning, everyone. And happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are happy to see everybody here, either online or in person in our beautiful sanctuary. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors we have with us today. We invite all of you to join us downstairs or online for a community time following the service. Our mission is to build community, search for meaning, deepen our spirituality, and work together to make a better world. To learn more about First Parish or Unitarian Universalism, please visit uuwayland.org or contact Kate Holland, Director of Lifespan Education and Engagement. Please also reach out to a member of the parish committee, such as myself, or to Reverend Stephanie if you have any ideas or questions about First Parish. And a big thanks to all of the other service participants whose names are in the order of service. I'm pleased to note that Middlesex County currently has a low risk for COVID, so masks are optional. You can mask or not as you prefer. Please join me now in taking a moment to say hello to one another, and including a wave to the front camera over there, and those online. Welcome again, and let our service begin.
Let us begin this day by breathing deeply. Here we go. Another day, another chance to live, to love, to risk one's heart, to take a chance on a bold idea. On this Mother's Day Sunday, may we all be grateful for the simple gift of life bestowed upon us by those who nurtured us before we took our first breath. In this hour, may we be reminded anew to savor this gift of life for ourselves and for all with whom we coexist in the web of life. And may we be inspired to do what we may to sustain the flourishing of life in our children, our congregation, and in our ecosystem. I now invite the Williams family to come forward, to light our chalice and to lead us in our covenant, the words that express our why for being here and also our how of how to gather.
Good morning. Please join us in saying,
With open minds.
with open minds and loving hearts, we gather to search for meaning, to care for one another, and to work together for a better world. I think you almost got the Pledge of Allegiance.
And our opening hymn is number 63, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers. And if you read music, ignore it. We're going to sing it to the tune of Good King Wenceslas. It works, it really does, it's great. Please rise in body or in spirit. 63.
And look at that, it did work. My name is Alyssa Lee. I'm the ministerial intern here at First Parish, and my pronouns are she or they. And I'm going to share a story with you this morning called The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. Liza and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep one quiet and calm night. Suddenly it began to rain very hard. Thunder rumbled so loud that it woke them up. "Mommy, Mommy," they cried out as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two. It's just the storm making all that noise. Go back to bed." Jeremy said, "We want to stay close to you. We're scared." Mom said, "You know we're always together, no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're in bed?" said Liza. Mom said, "This is how. I was about your age when my mommy first told me about the invisible string." "I don't see a string," said Jeremy. "You don't need to see the invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love." Liza asked, "But if you can't see it, how do you know it's there?" "Even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart, and know that you're always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug in my heart. And when you tug it right back, we feel it in our hearts," said Jeremy. "Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string?" "She sure does." And best friends like me and Lucy? Asked Liza. Best friends too. How far can the string reach? Anywhere and everywhere. Would it reach me if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean? Asked Jeremy. Yes, even there. Or a mountain climber? Even there. A ballerina in France? Even there. A jungle explorer? Even there. How about an astronaut in space? Yes, even there. Liza asked, does the string go away when you're mad at us? Never. Love is stronger than anger. And as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there. Even when you get older and you can't agree on things like what movie to see, or what game to play in the back seat, or what time to go to bed. Then Mom said, oh, that's right, you two were supposed to be in bed. So she chased them back to their beds. Within a few minutes, they were sound asleep, even though the storm was still making the loud noises outside. As they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have, the strings their friends have, and their friends have, and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they now could clearly see, no one is ever alone. So this story reminds us that we can't always be with the people we want to be, but we still stay connected to them by the love that we share and by our memories of the time that we spend together. So maybe the next time you're missing someone, imagine yourself tugging at that invisible string and them feeling you pull on the other end, because maybe they will. So now it's time for our Seek friends to go downstairs. I think they're going to be with Jenny and Emma there, so if you'll follow them, and we will sing them out. Thank you all.
Lovely, thank you, choir. Unfortunately, Betsy Cullen is having a hard Mother's Day with a sick child. So thanks to Lois Dorr for stepping in to read this poem by Maggie Smith. And I'll just note that there is some strong language in the poem, which unfortunately reflects the reality of life.
And happy Mother's Day to all. And I am reading Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Life is short, though I keep this for my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways that I'll keep for my children. The world's at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate. Though I keep this for my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this for my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. And any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful.
Thanks, Lois. Our hymn is 1058. It's a short little hymn that we're going to sing through twice. It's in this teal hymnal and written by Theodore Parker, who was a 19th century Unitarian minister and abolitionist and activist and all-around great guy. And I love how he describes Unitarian Universalism. So, and that is our month, Unitarian Universalism. So please rise in body or in spirit to sing Be Ours of Religion through twice. As a welcoming congregation, we set aside time and services throughout the year to mark days of significance to the LGBTQ+ community. Today we light a candle to mark the upcoming International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia on May 17th, this Wednesday. This day is currently celebrated in 130 countries, including 37 where same-sex acts are currently illegal. Among the places where same-sex acts are illegal, I want to particularly lift up Uganda, a country to which we have a special bond through our Ugandan and Ugandan American members. The legislature there recently passed an anti-LGBTQ bill with severe penalties that include lifelong imprisonment and even death. LGBTQ folks are trying to flee the country, And if you want to know more about how you might be able to help them, just check in with me after the service. By lighting this candle, may we recognize and remember that much work remains not only for civil equality, but for basic human rights and safety for the LGBTQ+ community around the world. In the words of this year's theme for the day, may we commit to be together always, united in diversity.
Please join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation. Let's take a deep breath in and out. And another deep breath in and out. Spirit of love and connection, we have spent this last year as a community exploring religion, faith, and spirituality in many of its diverse and rich forms. We have spent these months since September perhaps wondering how we each individually fit within some of these frameworks. Where do we find our own spirit? Where do I find my own meaning? When the dishes are piled in the sink, or the trash is overflowing, or the garden needs weeding, how do we find the time to do much else other than the mundane tasks of life? But perhaps it is in the mundane that some of us, those of us who are looking, will find the divine, or find meaning, or a place to rest our active minds. This week, may we allow ourselves time to find the eternal in the common, to explore hidden depths to these pursuits that we so often do out of habit, to see the beauty in the everyday of our uniquely human experience. May we find gratitude for tasks that normally we overlook or possibly even dread. And maybe, for those of us that are looking, may we find the divine in a task as simple as taking out the trash. Perhaps we can recognize it is an opportunity to look up at the stars, smell the fresh air, and just be with ourselves without any distraction. This week, may we find the meaning that has been waiting for us, but we too often overlook. Amen. Let us now pause for a moment of stillness, a moment to focus on our breath, to breathe in and out, and remember that this breathing can be either nothing more than the function of our bodies that we do upon instinct, or it can be a moment that we pause, take notice of our breath, and hopefully feel some of the stresses and anxieties of the everyday fade away.
Kathy Schmidt, a lay minister of this congregation. This is a time in our service that we set aside to share our personal joys and sorrows. In both our sharing and in the support given by our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. I will begin by lighting the first candle, a candle of sorrow, for the recent revelations that many factories and other companies in our very own country, the United States, are using child labor, often migrant children, to create their products. We pray for the safety of these children, as well as a chance for them simply to be kids. I will also light a candle of joy as many students and parents celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. Go Jada. We take a moment to express our gratitude for the teachers, specialists, and administrators and other staff that play a vital role in our communities and particularly our children. As a reminder, Joys and Sorrows will not be part of the recorded service posted to YouTube.
This morning I was just waiting downstairs and looking around, and I think many of you know I'm only going to be here for about another month, and then my internship is up. And I, of course, am going to miss all of you a great deal, but I was also thinking I'm also going to miss this beautiful historic building. What a gift that we have to be able to live every week in this building. And so I love the support that everyone has for the wonderful programs here, but also when you provide support for First Parish, you're also supporting the upkeep of this historic building that, you know, I've talked to many people who don't go here, just, you know, in Wayland or even outside of Wayland, and they'll say, oh, is it that big church that's right in the middle of town? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And it's such a beacon for, I think, a lot of people around here in ways that might surprise you all. So thank you for your support of not only the people in the congregation, but where we're luckily able to meet every week. If you would like to donate, if you're online, you can go to uuwayland.org/donate. There's other options also in your order of service. If you're in person, you can also go online, but you can also donate in one of the baskets that will be passed around. We gratefully receive the service. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
We're conferring. I thought, yes, it is a shared plate today. She's right. Half of the offering will go to the upkeep of the building. But we're also, as is our practice once a month, is we're sharing the plate. And today we're going to share it with the Metro West Workers Center, which is in Framingham, and they provide all kinds of legal and practical support to low-income workers, many of whom are immigrants, and a number of whom are undocumented. It's a great organization. I encourage you to give as you're able, as Alyssa instructed. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will gratefully receive the offering.
Before beginning, I just want to thank Helen for acknowledging parents who have become parents through adoption. My own mom was adopted and has taught me a lot about that. And also want to just acknowledge all those who have chosen not to parent or mother, as well as those for whom sought to, but that was not the path that opened to them. I know Mother's Day is both a happy day for many, but also complicated for others. So, thank you. My son was born at 21:12 at night, a time that made my then husband very happy, as 21:12 was the name of an album of his favorite band, Rush. I heard somebody chuckle, they recognized that. All I knew is that I was exhausted, tired, hungry, and cold. After all the bustle of the hospital staff checking over me and my son, as well as first glimpses and photos with grandparents and great-grandparents, I was relieved to finally be settled into a darkened room for some sleep. Except there beside me was a little bassinet with my tightly swaddled, hours-old son. And as I tried to fall asleep, I worried, is he breathing? There, in that moment of worry for his sustained life, I felt like I became a parent. A quarter century later, I still catch myself wondering where he is and if he's all right. Sometime in high school, as he became more independent from me, he learned to accept that sometimes he would get texts or calls from me simply seeking proof of life. Are you still breathing? Taking responsibility to sustain life for ourselves or for another is not a small thing. As Maggie Smith writes in her poem, Good Bones, there is much in life to be worried about. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate. She tries to keep this from her children, she writes. I don't blame her. It seems a pretty natural thing to do to wish to protect children from the awfulness of life. Recently, I tried to remember what it felt like to be a kid, to be innocent of so much conflict, heartbreak, injustice, and destruction that my adult self mucks through daily. Sometimes there are glimpses, right? A sunny spring day of birdsong, the cold sweetness of ice cream on a summer afternoon, the openness to a day with no agenda but play. Even as adults, aware of all that could and does go wrong in the world, we still know the good. There are children whom are deeply loved, strangers who are kind, and delicious ways that we enjoy life. There is the 50% wonder that resides beside the 50% terrible. There are the good bones of a world that could be beautiful, right? For me, being part of a religious community sustains me in a world that is both terrible and full of beauty. Last fall, in a sermon entitled, Why Bother with Religion?, I laid out my belief that we need multi-generational communities of love where we feel we belong. Amidst the flood of all that life brings, we need ways to navigate the complexity and choices in relationships. We need to be able to make sense of what is happening, or at least to not feel alone when we face the inexplicable. Religion meets this need by bringing people together into communities of care and a shared search for meaning. But like life itself, religion evolves, shifts, and changes. Throughout this year, we have caught a glimpse of this as we explored the variety of religious traditions, each with its own story of beginnings, expansion, and change. We embarked on this journey because of our awareness that the religious landscape within the U.S. has become vastly more diverse in recent decades. And our Unitarian Universalist sources call us to acknowledge the wisdom found in this multitude of traditions. Deepening our respect for the religious diversity among us cultivates a sense of perspective for our own UU tradition, for this congregation, and for our own spiritual search. Religion is bigger than any one of us, in any one congregation, and any one tradition. Religion is the story of how people come together in diverse ways in a desire to live meaningfully and well. As we look to the future, the story of religion has many places of uncertainty and change. For example, in the latest analysis of the Pew Research Center on the future of religion in America, the most likely prediction is that Christians could make up less than half of the U.S. population within a few decades. To reach this forecast, they track trends of religious switching, which is to say the patterns of people changing religious affiliation, many from Christian to none. Unitarian Universalists are generally too small in number to be tracked effectively by Pew. But membership statistics on the UUA website for 1961 to 1920 suggest decline in UUism as well. According to the 2020 Widening the Circle of Concern report issued by the UUA, there are closer to 819 congregations in 2020, rather than the 1,000 congregations often referred to in UU discourse. While the numbers are not yet available online, the impact of the pandemic has stressed many congregations, and that number is likely lower due to closures or mergers. In the face of decline, religious leaders and congregations are seeking ways to reverse or at least slow the loss. Uncertain about the path forward, it can be easy to look back to times with more members for ideas on how to fix today's problems. But today's world does not look like the world of yesterday. The Widening of the Circle of Concern report also points to national demographic shifts that point towards more racial and ethnic diversity, including a rise in those who are multiracial. Increasingly, we do not live in monocultural contexts, which changes expectations around cultural competency. We need new skills and mental frameworks for living in pluralistic communities of cultural differences. Additionally, the Widening the Circle names the bleaker future that many newer generations face relative to those closer to retirement. Rising costs of education, student loans, housing, and childcare place significant financial strain on today's younger adults. And after decades of headlines that link religion with violence, anti-LGBTQ bigotry, sexual misconduct of religious leaders, and more, many have soured on the very idea of religious affiliation. All this is to say there are some pretty stiff headwinds for religious congregations these days, especially those that do not adapt to address the shifting multicultural context, the challenges facing younger adults, and the negative press of religious life. As your minister these past 9 years, I have sought to help this congregation strengthen its capacity to respond to the current challenges and context in which we find ourselves. We live in a world that is at least 50% terrible, and there is a lot of pain around us. Loneliness, addiction and bigotry, war, poverty, and climate change. And just this week, we saw headlines of another push of immigrants at the US border fleeing untenable situations in their home countries. All around us, people are seeking to simply live, to foster life for themselves, their children, their families. All around us, there are people clinging to the hope of good bones, a more beautiful world. For all of us, the future is hazy with unknowns. Living through a global pandemic imprinted this deep in us. And yet the future still beckons. When I think about the future, the word that comes up again and again is sustainable. What does a sustainable future look like? How can we sustain ourselves, our communities, our ecosystem? Sustainable is more than a trendy word. Sustainable points to a commitment to helping life flourish. While I cannot go as deeply as I'd like, or you want, because you don't want to be here all day, I'll sketch out a few thoughts for what a sustainable future might look like. As individuals, I think sustainability means following the old adage, know thyself. Know what restores you. Know what wears you down. Say no and seek a balance between what drains you and what renews you. As I understand it, this commitment to balance among many younger adults is what is driving trends to shorter work weeks, continued remote work, and yes, perhaps lower volunteerism. To me, this is okay. We need to live sustainably with how much we can in fact handle. We also need to be deeply mindful that we now live within what's called an attention economy, an economy that actively vies for our attention through ads, social media, and all kinds of attention. To what will we give our limited, precious attention? It's okay to make choices and not do it all. Know thyself, your passions and values, your weaknesses and limits, and your best practices for sustaining your spirit. As congregations and religious communities, I think a sustainable future responds to the current context while being rooted in the past. The past has a role by providing a sense of story and meaning that feels substantive and grounding. But the through line from the past to today and on to the future is how to meet the spiritual needs of the present. What do people need today from First Parish? What capacities does First Parish currently have to meet some of those needs? Sustaining the life of a congregation means evolving and changing as the world evolves and changes. This does not mean everything changes. Core values remain even if the language we use to express them changes, which is what's happening now with the discussions around revising the language of Article 2, the 7 principles and 6 sources, that is going to happen this summer at the UUA General Assembly. The language may change, but the values remain. Sustaining this congregation and Unitarian Universalism more broadly means engaging in a process of a change that inevitably comes. The question is not whether to change, but how to continue adapting to the current context of human spiritual need. And today's context includes the reality of a climate changed by human activity. Sustainability in the ecosystem means letting go of our ease, exceeding the limits of what the planet can bear. All the enthusiasm of an ever-expanding progress born from an industrial revolution must now be tempered with the knowledge of real harm. While technology from wind farms to heat pumps and batteries will have a role to play in a more sustainable future, I suspect we will also be asked to change how we daily live, how we vote, and which values we place first as we try to mitigate the worst of the harm. I think it's fair to say that there will be a good percentage of terrible in the years to come, from extreme weather, failed crops, water wars, mass extinctions, and more. But amidst the harm, I want to be the realtor looking at the good bones and asking, this place could be beautiful, right? This place could be beautiful and life-affirming. This place could help sustain individuals and families and communities and a whole ecosystem. This place, First Parish, can and already is a part of that work of actively hoping for a more beautiful world. After more than 383 years, 5 meeting houses, 32 settled ministers, and tens of thousands of people gathering in the pews each Sunday, First Parish is still breathing, still alive. If you need proof of life, just look around to see one another. Read the weekly e-blast or monthly Unitarian to learn all that is happening, and come next Sunday to hear from several of our high school youth and to vote in the annual meeting as the congregation moves together into another year. In a living world of ongoing change, you can shape the future of First Parish by continuing to show up and engage. You could sustain the beauty here. And while I will no longer be among you next year, there'll be that invisible thread connecting me to you still. And I believe that you will not just keep breathing, but that you have all the capacity you need to keep sustaining the life of one another in this congregation. I believe you will keep making something beautiful here. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land. Please rise in body or in spirit. And this is a song that begs to be just blasted out, so do what you can. sustained by our connections to each other and to all that is holy, good, and beautiful. Let us go and be beyond these walls, bringing more light and life, love and justice to our shared, diverse world. Amen.